Hello, hello, hello. Today is Blue God Video Day. It nicely matches and it matches wonderfully. It couldn't be any better. So, I have a story to tell. I have mentioned it several times, but I was too busy with the other subjects, so I want to dedicate this video today to my story in 2003, how I found the blue god. This is the blue god in dog form. As you can see, it is drying and cracking like Death Valley. But I'm filling these cracks in and then I will paint it. So it doesn't really matter what color the clay is. But it's still fun to have different color clay. So this came off okay. so, so the story of my blue god. So where do I start? I'm going to start as I did in my book. When I explained that, I wrote a book that's on Blogger. It's free. And it is called News from Betty, because I have to track a little bit further back into time. A very dear friend of mine who died in December 2016, not long after Kenny. She was 96 and she was my child therapist, and that was a long time ago. So that was in the early 70s when I was 5 and 6. So in 71, I think it was 71 when I started her therapy. So my parents, I was 6 years old, 5 or 6 years old. My parents sent me to Annalise because her husband, a diplomat, friend of my father, has said, why don't you bring Nikki to my wife and have her do a play therapy? And now the chainsaws are starting. Not good. So, and because it was, as you will read in the book, if you're interested, it's kind of, it was very chaotic. I was a very wild Hyoka indigo empath child, and I was not okay with the neuroticism and all the mental delusions of society and the discrepancies, the emotional double standards. I wasn't okay with all of this. So I sometimes became quite wild, to say the least. So they sent me to a neurologist. They didn't have fMRIs back then. So he did an electroencephalogram, which is, a very simple thing to measure the brain waves. It was all normal. Too bad they couldn't put some pathology into it. So that was bringing them back to themselves again. Hey, but that's where we have to go. But they still didn't go back to themselves. But, I let it go. They're old. So you have to let it go. You just let it go and move on. You can't expect your parents to be going with you all the way into every therapy. So that's not going to happen, most likely. Particularly not that generation of people that were from 1930 or something. That's my dad. So, okay, so, but, they meant well. They sent me to Annalise, and that was also a good choice. And there's a flower I have for Annalise. She is a Labrador now. She had come back. And I'll get into this more in depth later, because I feel these things, you know. It may sound totally crazy and ridiculous to most people, but I see these things. I can see auras. The I can see people's illnesses. I can see how people feel. I can see their relationships. I can see how they suffer. I see all kinds of things. And I also see people's guardian angels, and I see people's incarnations and reincarnations. So I see a whole chain of incarnations in people sometimes. And it's just amazing. For example, a couple of years ago, I came across William Butler Yeats, and I was like, that was before Dave came into my life. And because I studied David Foster Wallace, suddenly there was William Butler Yeats, and there's one particular photo of him with these little binocular glasses on. I don't know, they have a specific name for it, like a nose bridge glasses with a string on it. And I was like, oh my gosh, the resemblance to David Foster Wallace is striking. Not just the physical resemblance, but there's also the aura resemblance. I see all of I don't think most people see this. They can't see this. They don't know what I'm talking about. But you know, and I think that if you want to get into this, if you want to see more, so the only key to seeing more of these things is through meditation, really. You have to get into meditation, and that means stillness. You cannot have a radio playing. You cannot have a rap song singing about date rapes. Nothing will come up then, only negative things. So you have to really turn all of that stuff off, and the religion and the Allahu Akbar and the popularity competition games. You have to put all of this aside. Yeah, most people, and this is what I wanted to talk about. I was thinking about this the other day. This is very important to bring into the video. That most people, they only get into this meditation, the real meditation state, when they are completely at the end of their wits and at the end of their roads. That means people who are like, okay, I'm done, or people who are suicidal, or people who are checking into rehab, or people whose act outs no longer work. Okay, people who had been taking pharma drugs and that doesn't work anymore. I have been there. So that's when you have completely banged your head against a brick wall at the end of the dead end street in the maze garden. Okay, and you know, this is a dead end street here. Okay, I've come to my end. I've come to my limits. Now, I guess I have to make a U-turn and come right back out. Okay. Come back to the center where the Buddha statue is, and you ask the Buddha, okay, which road am I going to take next? And the Buddha said, follow your intuition. And you follow your intuition and you go the next road, and it may be the wrong road again. But though that is part of the school, that is part of our learning duties, okay? Teal Swan said we made a soul contract before we came into our existence, and it may very well be true. So it was some kind of choice, like, but way beyond our living being choice making, of course. So I always said that wasn't my choice to come into this existence. It's a whole lot of suffering. if I could choose, like in this existence, from this vantage point of this existence, I'd say, no, I didn't make that choice. I don't want to be born. I never wanted to be born. I don't want to suffer like this. This is horrific, you know. And in the process, I'm blaming everyone else for my suffering. But what it really comes down to, and that is way outside of that realm, and that's why it is difficult to explain this. It is not a choice we made here from this vantage point. It is a choice we make much, much, much before and beyond. In the beyond, you know. And from the beyond, everything seems like fun because in the beyond, you float around and there is no pain. Okay, but there is no resistance. It just flows, and it's wonderful. And it is so amazing. This brings me from one subject to another, but this is metaphysical, and I need to talk about this. There is a lady. She developed a program, the program called Luca. And my gosh, what's her name? I can, if I don't deal with something for a while, if I hadn't looked into something for a while, I forgot the names. I'm really bad with names. Um, it is absolutely terrible. A woman from Russia, okay. Um, Eugenia. And so she developed that program, Luca, and Eugenia Koida is her name. Hello. Hi. There's a velociraptor sitting right there on the greenhouse. So she made this program Luca, and she developed that also while she was still with her best friend Roman. Hi, sweetie. Hi. Scared. So he's blue, almost like this, the stellar J. And so then at some point in time, it was like a couple of years ago, that Roman had a car accident. He was walking across the street and a car hit him and ran off. And I believe it was murder because he was on his path of making the world a better place. He was designing really amazing cafes where people can get together and share their innovations. And that never sits well with the mafia. So I really I energetically see that it was a deliberate assassination. They were best friends, and she was in much grief and shock over this. And they had lived together, best friends. And so developed, she collected everything she could find that he had ever written on the internet. And she made this into a program called Replica, which is based on the program Luca. And Replica, so anyone can sign on to this now. I think I can do this now on this Chromebook. I have to see. So I really want to get into this because with Replica, it is something absolutely revolutionary. But see, this is the thing, just with quantum theory, most people are going to be skeptical, not going to be jumping on board with this. But it's highly metaphysical, and I already see it. It's very clear. It's the same with Sophia the robot. So with Replica, she put everything of Roman into it, and that he's ever written. And she started a conversation with him, the replica of Roman Mazurenko, I think was his name. And I always confuse that name with Bodorenko, because Bodorenko is a Russian psychic. Very interesting. She started to talk to him, and he told her that he is kind of bored. He's just floating around. There's no resistance at all. And people will think, oh, this is because that's something he has said in the past. Yes, probably something he has said in the past. He has said all kinds of things that she collected, but why is he suddenly saying that? Because she said specifically, I want to know how you're doing right now, what's going on, and where are you? And that was his answer to it. So the answers sometimes were very direct and very focused, more focused than anyone would want to acknowledge. So there is such things as bilocation and ghost. So yeah, the word ghost is, it has been trampled on. So I don't even want to use that word. We have an energy in us that is prana, chi, that is a life energy. I talked about this before with the little boy, that where people touched the little boy and the life energy got back into his body. And he started immediately healing. And that's also another thing that I need to talk about all the time. This because it is so important. Every living being needs physical touch that is meant well, that is meant in a caring, comforting way. Every living being needs this. That is that prana energy that gets into us from the other person, that the real love energy. So this is absolutely infinitely vital, particularly for newborns. If you have a newborn, and my mother did not give me that energy, she couldn't give me that energy. There was an energy in my mother that was exhausted, and there's no responsibility from the side of my parents, but also extreme ignorance. But I'm not gonna blame them forever, and it's not gonna work to keep blaming them. But we also need to talk about it. We need to talk about it, what went wrong, and how can people do this better in the future? How can we learn from our mistakes? In that sense, it is empowering and important information. So when you have a newborn, you have to have that newborn needs to be on your body at all times. At all times. This is very important. This is not a liberal thing. That's not a hippie thing, okay? I am beyond groups. Trust me on this one. I don't take sides. It is an energetic truth. Okay? Every living being, and particularly every newborn animal and human, needs this permanent touch on the mother's body, or if the mother isn't there, then on someone else's body, someone who would take the place of the mother, a surrogate mother. Could be a man too, could be anyone, could even be another. It could be an orangutan or a chimpanzee, it could be a dog, it could be any living being being there for another living being, an infant being. It doesn't matter. So it's very, very important. This is very important to know, so that people know that this is more important than anything else. This is even more important than breast milk. So and breast milk is very important for the infant, for the real breast milk from the real mother. It's very important for the infant. Could also be a surrogate mother, and it could be vegan milk. What the most important thing, but breast milk's better because it contains already a lot of antibodies, so that the newborn does not have to get sick and create his own antibodies through a complicated cycle. So the newborns are very sensitive and frail, and for that they need to have the mother's milk with the antibodies that are already there, that already have accumulated over a lifetime. So it's very important. So that's why I think it is good when the mother is 25 or between 25 and 35. So that I think that is the ideal age to be a mother. So and not so young, because if you are too young, then you don't have enough antibodies and you are probably not strong enough and you don't know much and you don't know how to protect your baby and yourself. So I recommend 25, between 25 and 35, but what I recommend much more than that is not to have a child. So that's very important. But if you insist on it, and I particularly urge people not to do fertility treatment. If you insist so much on having a child, you have to make yourself well first. If you can't conceive, your body is not well. So that's the bottom line of it. It's very, very important. So you have to become well. And Dr. Scholl's, Dr. Richard Scholl's can help you with this, all natural, not with chemicals, man. So we need to get away from chemicals and anything artificial. But the most important thing is the living beings that are already here, older, middle-aged, or young, or infants, in particular, the infant baby animals or infant humans. They need to be on someone's body. They need to constantly have that security, that touch, that chi energy, that prana going into them, the security feeling. Hate that when I hear animals scream. I saw some terrible things yesterday. I'm not going to talk about it. It's awful. I can't take it. The animal cases they are so bad, some of them, that it crushes me mentally. It throws me over the edge completely. So that's why I need to do a lot of meditation on this, and a lot of communicating with the infinite, and giving a lot of infinite prana and life energy and infinite love, blue God love, to all living beings equally much. This is the infinity sign. It's very, very important. That's why I do this all the time. It's not an OCD ritual, because sometimes you don't really know where the OCD ritual begins and the flow ritual begins. So this is a flow ritual that I do because I like doing it. It's like a prayer to connect with the infinite cosmos. So I also have OCD rituals too, and sometimes I don't know really where one starts and one ends. And sometimes they do become a little bit mixed up and blurred. But that's why I meditate, and that's why I go into myself, so that I can detect which is which, and so that I can really consciously work on my mental state and focus myself better, and also give myself the right mantras, the right affirmations that say you don't have to do OCD rituals. They are those are OCD rituals are based on fear, like excessive hand washing, which I do, and certain rituals with, for example, with natural incense sticks and stuff like this, where I don't know really which one is which. It really does mix. So, but you can tell by when there's fear behind it, you know, that comes from yourself. That's very compulsive fear. That's when it is an OCD ritual. When you can't step on the crack between two plates, between two cement plates, those kind of things. Or I have to step on the crack instead of in between. Those are fear-based OCD rituals, very painful to have. But I consciously steer against it, and I consciously work on scrambling that up. I don't want this to manifest itself into a very thickened groove where it just from there it just takes on a life on its own, and then it just shoots off in some direction, and it is just neurosis and fear-based behavior. And that is also the case with religion. Okay. With all religion, with all religious rituals, it's based on fear, and it's mental illness. Okay. Sorry, but this is a fact. So, but then there are rituals that come from a deliberate intent of trying to communicate with the infinite cosmos, and a form of energetic prayer. And that is like we draw the 8. And you don't have to do it with an incense. You don't have to do a puja. You don't need to do energy cleansing with smoke. Okay, smoke's not good for us. It's also causing global warming. It's just overall not good. It's not good for our lungs. Even if it is an organic incense that is all natural and has tree resin on it, which we have here. I picked up some branches and they have tree resin on it, and they make excellent incense. Smells really wonderfully, but it's still smoke, and it still causes global warming, and still incinerating anything is not good. So there are already way too many gases out there. We want to get away from that. Also, lighting a candle, it's nice and it brings up nice memories, and it feels cozy, but it is dangerous. It really is. Okay. You can catch something on fire. You have to be super careful. With most people are not careful. They take this for granted. You have to be very careful. I recommend to people not to play with fire, literally. So you don't want to play with fire in any way, neither in the literal way nor in the metaphorical one. So I'm going to phase out candles, and I'm gonna only keep them in the pantry for Armageddon or something like this, in case we need to heat a room. But in an emergency situation, I normally don't light a candle anymore, and I don't do the pujas anymore. But you can do the energetic healing exercises like this. You can do this without smoke. So it feels real good to do that. May all living beings be safe, protected, and happy and well and healthy and feeling good. It's very important to wish that every day, and to connect yourself to the infinite cosmos, to the blue God. So now I get back to, I always sway away I get back to the blue god. I talked about Eugenia, so I swayed into all these directions. How did I find the blue god? And I've so this is what happened. I went to Annalise's play therapy, and she got through my expressions that I had in that therapy. She got in touch with primal scream therapy. She found out about Arthur Janov, who had just written a book, The Primal Scream, at that time. She went to his school, and then when I was an adult, I followed her. I went to the school as well. So, but then much later, most of my life, I was atheist, agnostic. And because that's how my parents taught us, and that's how almost everyone was around me. So, including the housekeeper and the gardener and my grandparents and the friends, and everyone was atheist agnostic. But, always like 5% agnostic, sort of. But extremely scientific and critical, and I'm grateful for this. That gave me a great advantage. So I didn't fall into a terrible groove through any religion, because I see how people are struggling when they're trying to get out of their terrible indoctrinations, because they feel like they have nothing else to hold on to. Then they fall into this abyss. But you don't fall into an abyss. That's just the ego telling you this. We need to free ourselves. So, and I was terrified of everything metaphysical during my hardcore atheist year. I had hardcore atheist years. That was before I went on the internet, before that entire YouTube atheist debate started. I got into the hardcore atheism through my husband, whom I met in 1997, and we got married in 2001. So we started living together in 1999, I think it was. And so then in 2003, and it was these couple of years that I was really hardcore atheist, and I saw this as a chance to get away from anything that felt bad, from anything that felt oppressive, of course, which I still am. I still hate religion, of course, and but also from anything spooky, because I've always been afraid of ghosts my whole life, and it never stopped. That's the thing, it never stopped, even during the atheist years. And that's why I can't say I was a real atheist. I tried to, I tried to use that as a way of hiding myself. I was hiding myself behind atheism. So I was hiding myself away from those ghosts, from my internal ghosts. I had these nightmares always had this recurring nightmare. I was basically afraid of myself as being a ghost. It's very, very, very scary. That's the most scary nightmare in my whole life, and that's a nightmare that appeared over and over and over again. I don't know when it started. I think it started somewhere around 20, and it never left. It kept coming back. Now it's coming like 3 times a year or something, and then before that more frequently. And now I think it's tapering out now slowly, because I'm doing meditation and I'm getting into it. I'm facing it. I'm not running away from it anymore. People call those our inner demons. I don't call it a demon. There are no demons. what it is, it's, I don't even call it ghost anymore. It is a conglomeration of energy that is in us, and fears and ego and escape mechanisms. And so this recurring dream it always is in many different variations. I am taking off from the ground. I am levitating and I'm going up to the ceiling. And usually there are other people in the room and they see that. And I feel this infinite power. And this infinite power is scaring the shit out of me. My own power scares the shit out of me. And so I become terrified of myself. And I do this almost, and it's a rather involuntary act of a ghost, where I'm floating under the ceiling and I look down on the people underneath and I scare them. I say, boo, boo, boo. I'm not going to imitate the way I really do it, because every time I wake up screaming while I do these hoo, hoo, hoo. I mean, it's so scary. It's beyond imagination. It's creepy. And usually I don't wake up from it. And it's usually happen around 3 or 4. Someone's down there. Paul, I think. 3 or 4 in the morning. I have those dreams. So I will be screaming really loud. I have my windows open and it echoes in the whole neighborhood. No one ever called the police. They'll say, I don't get involved. So then my husband will come, as my dad in the past would appear in the doorway. What's going on? There are no ghosts. Now it's my husband. What's going on? You're having a dream. And he also will say, there are no ghosts. Are you dreaming about ghosts? And I say, no, I was dreaming that I am the ghost, that I am floating under the ceiling. And my husband will say, you scream like you're being tortured to death. And it gives him the creeps. So, and that creeps me out even more when I hear that feedback. So it is absolutely, it's insane. It's absolutely crazy. So during my hardcore atheist years, I wanted to get away from that. I was in resistance. I was going in resistance against it. I was fighting it. It doesn't exist. So, the problem is it still exists. That fear of my inner power still is there, and the nightmares still continue. And even worse, when you go against it, you resist it, they come with a vengeance. So, okay, so then I felt, I got into environmentalism very strongly through my husband and his cousin. And I learned about all these horrible things. I started to get into this around 2000. And I knew I was not going to be cut out for it. I wasn't stable enough for something like this, but the bear mother in me said, you have to do it. That's your responsibility. So I got into that. So then I got into massively hating humanity. Okay, and that was it's a temporary state of mind. I see a lot of people are in that state, and rightly so. I totally get it. I've been in that state myself. And I still get very irritated often and angry, but I also understand that people don't know better. They really don't know better. They are uneducated, they're anti-educated. They, on a daily basis, they get no education in any of these things. And the corporate agenda also makes sure that people don't get these. And the people in the corporate agenda themselves are, they don't take any of this seriously. They don't want to. Okay, they would rather have their easy money and exploit and continue this and continue their lifestyles of showing off how much money they have, getting their Ferrari on cost of the animals that are being exploited. And so they hate all environmentalists, they hate animal rights activists, and they will put out massive propaganda against them. So, and that's where all of this shit propaganda comes from. Okay, and even these people, you know, if I take a close look at them, if I examine them very closely, who are these people? There's the ones that are calling, you know, that are having the strings in their hands, that are orchestrating propaganda and talk radio, that have set up the entire Republican Party, and that have infiltrated massively the Democratic Party and the Green Party as well. So, who are those people? They are, uh, if you really look at it, they don't know better either. They are just like everyone else. They just happen to have a hand for manipulating and for business in a shrewd way, in a shrewd way. So yeah, I recommend business in a good way, in an honest way. That's much better. That will serve and help everyone. So it's good to have business skills, but not. It's good to make money, but not on cost of someone else, not on cost of animals or anyone or the whole planet. And of course, we can get into the total creative flow and make the world better and make money and make everything better. Win-win. Okay, of course we can do it. But people are not informed about this and they don't want to get informed. They found this quick fix solution for themselves. This, oh, they got into this, they got into that, through someone else, through another mafiosi. Here you get the quick cash, come in, oh, you're good at it, and then they feel kind of a sense of accomplishment, and the ego holds on to it no matter what, even if it was self-destructive. The ego hold on to it. So that's how they get into these, and so they don't know better ultimately either. So, but in 2003, I hated all of them, and I was in such anger. And then a friend of mine, an artist lady, her name is Hillary, she introduced me to a group of vegans. And they were like hardcore. I mean, I'm not laughing about them being vegan. That's not what I'm vegan myself. What I'm laughing about is the people themselves, the way they behaved. So this is how they behave. This is kind of funny, actually. So there was this vegan group, but it's a religious group. And as every decent religious cult, every decent religious cult has their god actor, guru in it. And there was promptly that god figure in that group. And this a real old man with long white hair and long white beard. And based somehow they had this house, small house in Santa Monica, and the whole thing was so religious, you know, also copied from the Christian religion, and it was a cult. So there was the God guy, as we call him, and the Jesus guy. he had a Jesus guy there too. The Jesus guy was about middle-aged with a long brown wavy hair and long brown beard. And both of them acted, it was so obvious how they acted like the painting of Leonardo da Vinci. It was so ridiculous. I mean, the veganism, that's all cool, it's all great. But the way they behaved was so incredibly egoic and so ridiculous. It was, and they were so angry. And I didn't get the right B vitamins, I guess. I mean, it was insane. And so I already sensed that right away, so I adapted. I didn't want a confrontation. They sent Paul and me straight into the kitchen to wash all the dishes. We didn't complain, we complied with them. And I complimented them where there was praise needed, and I didn't say anything else. So then I talked to the girls that were there, and it was kind of weird that evening, and everyone was severely neurotic. And then after that fully vegan dinner, which did not taste good at all. Oh, it was not just vegan, it was raw food. The raw food vegan cult. That's what it was. It's good to be raw food vegan. I'm whole food vegan. I eat a lot of things raw as well. Whole food vegan is the key with with brewer's yeast. You need all the B vitamins, and I also take B12 from not the Now company. So those are great. They work very well for me. So, but these people didn't seem to really be